I just noticed as I hit record, I have a very squeaky chair. There are so many things now with Zoom and podcasting where it's like etiquette, and a squeaky chair is. We'll see how it goes. But um, hey, I'm super excited to have you on today.
I am super excited to be here. As soon as you hit record, you froze immediately.
Oh, well, that's the other thing is with various podcast platforms, as you know, the freezing and all of that stuff. The poor Wi-Fi. That's another one.
Yep. The thing's getting deleted. Have you had that happen yet?
No, that I have not had happen. Thank God. But the poor Wi-Fi, especially if it's on your side, it's very embarrassing, isn't it? Especially if you have a guest.
Yeah.
Oh God, I feel so bad. Anyway, my good friend, Dr. MC McDonald, we go way back. I would say she's officially a regular on my podcast because, as you know, I don't have many guests on my podcast. It's just me 3 times a week. And so when I do have guests, they're people I really want to talk to. And MC has been on my podcast multiple times. Today
and I'm honored.
Oh, thank you. And today we're going to talk about something because something that I think is going to change, really change your life. I know it sounds a little dramatic, but about a week ago, MC introduced me to awe, this concept of awe, which I've never really thought about. I've heard, you see things on your feed, but never really considered it, right? It's very kind of like passing.
Yeah.
And she referred a book to me called Awe by someone who his first name sounds like a reindeer. And,
Dacker Keltner.
Oh, it's Dacker. I thought it was Dasher.
Dasher, no, Dacker.
Oh, it's Dacker.
I see why you would get that, though. Are you doing the audiobook?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's why. It sounds like Dasher.
I thought it was Dasher, and I was like, it's interesting because we don't have a chance to name ourselves because our parents obviously do before we're born, but I actually had a chance. At one point in my life when I was 11, I had a Korean name, and then because teachers couldn't pronounce it, I actually had a chance to name myself, but my parents went to a fortune teller. It came back with John.
Oh, shit, I didn't know that.
If I stood up for myself, I would have said, no, fuck that. Let me tell you what name I want. And Dasher or Christian or I could have named myself anything kind of cool. I would have gotten laid more.
Do you know, I know your maybe you would have gotten laid less. I know your Korean name, I think, and maybe how to pronounce it? Is it Chulki?
Yes.
Chulki.
So what's happening now is exactly what the teachers did for years, which is why they just said, okay, we're going to call you Chucky, and the horror movie really ruined it.
Yeah,
it's hard to say. It means iron. It's
rad.
It's Chulgi.
Oh,
but it's like a weird CHULK Chulgi. It's like an LG. It's very hard.
Oh, cool.
And I don't know anyone who can say Chulgi. So Chucky is the Americanized Chulgi. And just
you're
FYI,
so not a Chucky. It doesn't work.
Chucky will not get you laid. Chucky will not get you kissed. Will not get you anything.
It also just doesn't suit you. Like it doesn't. No.
Yeah. I think the horror movie really stained that name.
Yeah, but I'm thinking even of like Chucky's that I knew in
I don't know
elementary school.
Who names your child Chucky?
Well, I mean, before the movie,
Charlie.
I guess. Charles.
There's like
Chucky.
Charles, and then Chucky becomes a nickname. But fuck, Chucky.
I hate my name too. Do you know this? Have we talked about this? I feel like we haven't.
No.
So so my parents named me Mary Catherine, but they did not want me to be called Mary. And so they called me Mary Catherine, no nickname, for like the first 3 months of my life. So my whole entire life, everyone has been trying to call me Mary. And then when I was like a toddler, one of their friends came over and said, why don't you just call her Mac as a nickname?
Right.
And that was my nickname. And still, like, people from high school still call me that. My family still calls me that. But then when I went to grad school, I was like, I don't want to be Mac.
Right.
That doesn't feel like that's not my name. And so that's when I switched to MC, which people spell in all sorts of ways. Like on the Starbucks cup, sometimes it's EMSEY, EMCEE, MC. It's a disaster.
I
wanted
my
to be
spelling
like
of it correct? Like
Jessica.
I spell it like it's MC Hammer.
Yeah, MC Hammer. Yeah,
okay,
just
cool.
just like the letters, which when you're in Starbucks and they're like, how do you spell that? And I'm like, I'm going to sound like a jerk, but like the letters, MC, I don't know how to.
So I think Mac is adorable when you're 4 or 5.
Right.
Like, like my daughter, if her name was Mac or Charlie, or it'd be very cute. But yeah, once you're, college, once you're an adult, Mac, I don't know, that would work.
Yeah, no, I didn't like it.
I think Mary Catherine is better than just Mary, though. It sounds
but
very private school.
It does. And people, so that's funny. Someone said, you get all sorts of people say all sorts of things about Mary Catherine, but no one will say it. It takes too long.
It's a long Mary.
So
Catherine.
they say
you got to be patient, and you got to
Mary Kate, Catherine, MCAT.
Right.
Everybody.
MCAT. That sounds like some kind of exam.
Have
you taken the MCAT?
I think it's the med school exam, isn't it? The MCAT.
Yeah. Is it? I don't know. So let's get back to awe.
Yes.
But before even awe, and the meat and potatoes of this, I want it to be about the new book that you have already written. It is not out in the world, but she has turned it in.
Yep.
And it's all about the science behind joy. The reason why I think this is a game changer, especially for someone like me who spent most of my life, and if you grew up in Los Angeles, very few have, but if you grew up in Los Angeles, there's this weird programming that happens, especially if you were in entertainment. So I was a screenwriter, and just being in that world, especially early on, you start to get wired to chase the shiny thing, to pause life until I get the thing. This town's very fear driven and very glossy, and you just desperately want to get into the quad, right? And so for me, that was Hollywood. And so I never knew anything about joy, especially tiny little joys. To me, joy was winning the lottery, getting the big deals. The prettiest girl in the room gives you, like that kind of stuff, like the big things. And so with MC, she has this I would call it a movement where she talks a lot about the tiny little joys that we have in our life that isn't dependent on someone's yes or no or the phone to ring.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, yes, this is medicine. So can you tell us first how this whole thing started?
Yeah.
And also I want to get into the science behind it, because that's what people really love. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So it's interesting. I think that joy gets a really bad treatment in society because it either turns into like what you just mentioned, where it's like you have to wait so you win the lottery or have some huge win to feel joy, or it gets sort of like made absurd, and it's like, it's wearing white yoga pants and like this sort of silly live, laugh, love, like, kind of almost like toxic positivity of like, just have some joy, and it's actually a really steely, gritty emotion that is really persistent in the darkness, which is actually how my kind of obsession came into this. Was at the very beginning of the pandemic, which was, for lots of other reasons, not related to the pandemic, the darkest year of my life. And I was pretty desperate for an anchor, and I didn't have anything. It was just, that's a whole other thing, but there was just a lot going on, and I was anchorless and lost and really struggling to feel any positive anything. And we were doing Tat Lab classes, and I was walking around, taking hikes every day just because that was the only thing you could do. Everything was closed. And every day without fail, I would notice some tiny little thing that would give me just like the smallest burst of joy or happiness. Like I would notice like the tiniest flower on the hiking trail, or there would be some bird that flew in front of my face as I was walking and thinking about something really dark, or a breeze would come by, or like the smell of the hiking trail would kind of smell.
Was this an intention, or were you just in a place in your life where you just had, everything was bad, you had nothing, and so you kind of defaulted to finding something very
I defaulted. I defaulted. It was not intentional. But I think because I was doing groups at the time, I was like more attuned to it than I would have been if I hadn't been, because I was thinking, this isn't just about me and my dark time. This is about all these other people and their dark time as well. And I think it's really hard to go looking for joy when things are really dark. And so the reason that that it's tiny little joys and not glimmers, which some people talk about, and not great big joys, is because when you have
what's
trauma,
a glimmer? I've heard that before, but
you can actually become, or even if you're just in a dark place and you wouldn't necessarily label it traumatic moment, you can actually become averse to joy. You start to reject it because it is disturbing to your nervous system, and all you're looking for is stability. And so when you scale it way, way down, and you're not talking about like a great big joy of like getting promoted or winning the lottery or whatever, and you just think like, okay, what is in my peripheral vision that makes me happy? Right. And right now there's like this really nice breeze coming through the window right there. That's lovely. Or I have this LaCroix, limoncello is my favorite flavor. That's lovely. And if you can imprint those things, and I'll tell you a funny story about the writing of the book in a second, but if you can imprint those things, you start to notice them more. The more you start to notice them, the more you start to look for them. And over time, your whole kind of worldview can shift. And so this is something I just was noticing kind of in my life. I was writing Unbroken at the time, which is my previous book, which is about trauma. And I was going through trauma, and it was a very dark time. We were all going through collective trauma. And this like joy kept like tapping on the window, like, I'm here, I'm here, you know? And so I started to kind of dive back into the positive psychology research, which I had kind of dismissed, to be honest with you, a long time ago, and found that since I had done that, there had been a ton of new research in brain science and joy. And this is where things get super exciting, which is that, so we all know about the fear center because we talk about it all the time. This is what's activated when you're triggered, when you're having a traumatic event. That center takes up a ton of energy in your brain. And that's one of the reasons why when it's on, it shuts down everything else. It shuts down your prefrontal cortex, your memory folders, all this other stuff.
Wait, can I ask you a question real quick?
Of course.
If you have had a lot of trauma in your life, does that fear center, is it kind of always on?
Yeah, it can default.
Like, does it take more energy than the someone who hasn't had a lot of trauma?
For sure, because human beings are incredibly adaptive. And so we adapt to wonderful experiences, which is why, you know, when you fall in love, it doesn't stay that high, right? It kind of gets to a plateau. We adapt to everything. That's, in that case, it's called the hedonic treadmill. We don't talk about this a lot, but we also adapt to terrible circumstances. And so what happens is when your fear center is on all the time, or when it's on really frequently, like if you have a childhood that's really upsetting or you have a lot of neglect, your system will adapt and actually just keep the fear center on. And then you start, yeah, exactly. Because you're in danger, you live in danger, and you have to be hypervigilant all the time. Otherwise you're potentially in mortal danger.
Right.
So it's an adaptation, but it can, you know, turn maladaptive because then we miss all of the good stuff and we think we get tricked into thinking we have to be hypervigilant all the time. We can never rest or relax. And over time, that's of course terrible for our lives, but also our bodies. And so we knew that, we've known that for a really long time, but this new research showed that when you are in something that Martin Seligman has called the hope circuit, which is kind of like a counter part of the brain to the fear circuit, that also takes up a ton of energy. And when that is taking up a ton of energy, the fear circuit can't be online. So just like when the fear circuit is online, other stuff can't be online. When the hope circuit is online, other stuff can't be online. So the reason that's so exciting is because you can start to gradually rewire your brain by intentionally bringing in activities that fire up the hope circuit on a daily basis or multiple times a day. And every time you're doing that, the fear circuit is offline by default. So it can have tremendous impact in terms of like the way you see the world, how you feel in your body, the way that you behave in your relationships, how you feel at work, your confidence, your sense of self. It's huge, huge stuff.
So then the question is, how do you activate and keep the hope circuit going so the fear circuit is on, you know, as least as possible, I'm assuming. And one way to do that is to find tiny little joys, I'm assuming, you know?
Yep, totally.
And also awe. Does awe also contribute?
Yes. Yeah. So tiny little joys is one way. Anytime you're doing anything that like activates the imagination, or future planning, creativity. Yes, totally. Connection.
What about flow states? being in some kind of flow
Mm-hmm.
state. Okay.
Yeah, so flow states are a little bit different. The reason that they are so helpful for the brain is because they shake up the default mode network, which is like that TV channel that's running all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And if the TV channel is running all the time on a TV show that's telling you a story about why you're not worthy of love, for example,
Yeah, yeah.
whenever you shake up the default mode network, that will kind of shake up that story, which does the same thing. So you're either bringing in the hope circuit, which shuts down the fear circuit, or you're shaking up the default mode network, which is sort of like resetting all of your connections.
Can we just go through some misconceptions of what doesn't work that people think does work, or maybe it works but not that much? So, for example, affirmations. Are affirmations really powerful? Do they help the hope circuit, or are they kind of like, eh?
That's a great question. I don't know, honestly. I'd have to look into the research about how effective those are on a neurobiological level. I think
or like power posing.
Yeah, right. I think the thinking of affirmations comes from like a cognitive behavioral therapy model where it's like, let's try to reframe some of these, as you call them, like limiting beliefs that are maybe getting in the way by kind of flooding the system with positive things.
Yeah.
And that can help rewire the brain. I don't know I think that's more probably prefrontal cortex than hope circuit because it doesn't require a lot of imagination unless you are like coming up with absurd ones. One of my favorite ways to activate the hope circuit is coming up with absurd dreams because like that's something we used to do as kids and like in high school, right? You'd be like staying up late talking to your friends and you'd be like, what if we all moved to Texas and we had a compound and we made whiskey and like, all of a sudden you're like off to the races with this super detailed imaginary story that isn't going to happen because you're 16 and you're hanging out in your friend's basement or whatever. But all of that's...
Oh, sorry. Me and my friend Andy,
No.
we do would you rather questions.
Yes.
And I wonder if that's kind of a version of
Totally.
hope circuit. Like imagine, like, would you rather this or that? And then you start visualizing what that would entail, and it's very detailed, accurate because it's like a, which one would you rather do? Yeah.
And you're putting yourself into those ridiculous situations, and so you're
right.
so you're activating the hope circuit. What's like what's an example of like the most absurd?
One of my favorite ones that I invented that I thought was really smart is, would you rather change one event in the past, or would you rather get to see one event in the future? So that's like mine. Andy's is like, would you rather have halitosis or a permanent booger on your nose that you can't get rid of?
Oh shit!
Like that's like his. Right? I mean,
Those are terrible.
Not to judge. His is entertaining as well.
Yeah.
But I try to think of ones a little more challenging than having a booger on your face forever.
Yeah, that'd be terrible.
Which one would you rather do? Change one, and the butterfly effect too, right? So would you rather change one thing in the past, one event, or would you rather be able to see something in the future? But here's the thing: if you see something in the future, it may not be good. It may be like a failure. It may be something that you wish you wouldn't have seen.
Right. And I don't know if I want to change anything in the past because I like where I'm at now, and so that would change where I'm at now.
I know, but that's what makes it, I think, an interesting question. But you have to do one. You can't not do it. You have to pick one and do it.
I think I would change something from the past.
And then here we go to tighten the vice. What would that be?
Well, so I'm gonna actually, this is gonna be a cop out. I wouldn't have gone to the grocery store this morning. I would wait until after we're done to go to the grocery store because I don't want to,
not like a big event kind of thing.
Yeah, because I don't want to mess with where things are at. But man, like, if I could just go back and tweak little things, tweak things and not change the future, there's a lot.
I think I would choose seeing something in the future.
What do you want to see?
What's scary is you don't get to decide. It's like rolling dice. So you just get a random view of something, which can be terrifying. I don't know. Lucky maybe I'm homeless. I don't know. But I don't know. I think I would, because you could see it, and then you can work on not allowing that to affect you. It may also affect you in a really good way because you may see something and then you may have a sudden appreciation for life, or you may know that time is limited or whatever. I wouldn't fuck with the past.
Destroy the present.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Man, that's a tough one. I'm going to be thinking about that for a long time. But
Anyway,
anyway,
just a quick recap because
yep.
everything here is in the
Yes.
shot glass.
hmm
Hope circuit, fear circuit, and I love how MC brings things. She brings things to street level. And for someone like me, speaking of tests, I did very poorly on my SATs, and I need things very simplified to understand. And so,
Yeah.
hope circuit, fear circuit, and just imagine like curiosity and judgment. Only one
Yep.
thing can be running at a time. And
Yep.
so, how do we feed the hope circuit and turn down the fear circuit? And this is her practice of tiny little joys.
Yes, tiny little joys, absurd hope. The fun thing. So there's a couple of tools from Unbroken that are about this, but then in the new joy book, I got to make up a whole bunch of new tools, which is exciting. But there's one chapter that's about awe, and I borrowed a lot from. I mean, didn't borrow. I cited Dacher Keltner a lot because he says there's 8 sources of everyday awe that you can connect to every day. And awe is another sort of like doorway into
hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like anything that kind of expands you, that creates creativity, that's bigger than you is igniting hope. Hope isn't just like thinking you're gonna, get something, or maybe someone likes you, or it's not. I mean, that's hope too, but that's not the only kind of hope we're talking about.
No. This is a much. I think expansion is actually the perfect way to talk about that, because that's where were you when I was drafting the book, John? Why didn't you tell me that then?
I was here. You just had to pick up the phone.
I know. I had 4 months to write it. That was nuts.
And you're going to share a story about the process.
Oh, I am. Yes. Which is that I stopped believing in joy in the middle of the book.
Yeah.
And
I either saw a video or you told me this.
I think I told you. Yeah.
Yes. And I was like, what a great story.
Right.
It's very meta. It's very meta.
Which is, I think, actually what saved the book, because then I just put it in. I just included it in the book. I was like, okay, I don't believe in joy. Here we are. I'm right here with you. Like, now what?
Wait, was it because you were going through something? Were you burnt out? What made you get to a place where you stopped believing in joy?
It was a couple things. I think the state of the world right now it's hard to not have that impact you. One of Dacher Keltner's 8 sources of everyday awe, actually the number one is moral beauty, which is when someone does something sort of exceptional. And I think our world right now is really kind of devoid of that. And so I was feeling that. But I have a friend who has terminal brain cancer. And he was diagnosed like the month after I got the book contract. And it just felt like, I don't even know. So, I mean, unfair sounds so like trite, but this is one of these people who you're just like, not him, like such a good person, and has a family, and it's just, And so I was talking to him a lot about like, okay, what is your journey like? And he was also like, what do you do when you don't believe in joy? What do you do when you're angry at, the universe and God and all this stuff? And I was just like, fuck, I don't know. And so I had to just be in it, and I resisted it for a long time. And then I was like, just let it, just go into the darkness and see what's there. And the thing that kind of came out is that I don't know exactly what the title of the book is going to be yet, but I really want, when I did the contract, it was like, I want it to be tiny little dash, like gritty, steely, rebellious joys, because joy is not a silly emotion. It's really hardcore. I imagine like kind of joy dressed up in like punk rock, not white flowy yoga pants.
Yeah.
And the thing that was so wild is that as I was writing this chapter, it was, again, I was brought to the place where joy started tapping at the window. And I thought,
wait, when you say that, what do you mean by that? What was it? Intuition? What do you mean joy tapping on the window?
Like those moments when like you're almost like, I'd be like lying on the floor of my apartment, like, thinking like, I can't believe Chris is going to fucking die. Like, and sobbing about it. Like, I'm going to lose my friend. I've lost so many people. This is so unfair. He's going to like, so many people in his life are going to lose him, his wife, his family.
How old is he?
57.
Is he still alive?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But they gave him like 12 months. So,
by the way, if you guys don't know MC's story, just real quick, and you could read it in her book Unbroken.
Yes.
She lost both her parents at a very young age. So losing people, being thematic in her life, and now another person. So very
Yes.
activating, sure. And
Yes,
then,
exactly.
yeah.
And then I would be like, okay, there's no hope, there's no light, it's all darkness. I have to give the advance back. I can't write this fucking book. And then like up from the street, there would be the sound of like little kids laughing. And I'd be like, oh fuck. Or like, you have a meal because you're hungry, you make something for yourself, not because you like want to eat or you have any desire, but just to like check the box. And then you're like, oh, that was fucking good. Goddamn. And it's like, you don't actually have to believe in joy. Joy doesn't give a fuck if you believe in it or not. It's going to come for you anyway.
Yeah, that's what you said. I remember you said that it's like, it's almost like a flowing river. You're not going to, whether you swim in it or not, joy doesn't care.
Right.
It's kind of like it's like an eighth wonder.
Right.
It's there, right?
It's just
like
there.
air.
Yeah, exactly. The Northern Lights. You can believe in those or not, but they're a thing, like it doesn't. And I was so kind of like humbled and amused by that. And then,
oh, that's what you mean by knocking on your door. Like, even though you were in a dark place,
yep,
you weren't intentionally scanning for joy, but it still seeped in.
Exactly.
The kids at school, the sound of the kids, or
Yep.
you being hungry and cooking a meal, you kept noticing. And maybe this is because you have such a runway with the practice of joy.
Yeah.
Maybe because you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally. I think I kind of click into it because I don't question it. I'm just like, yeah, right. Yeah. There it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's it comes knocking. It's just there. It will find you. And I think sometimes we get into these kind of moods where Emerson says we court suffering, like we almost want to have a love affair with pain. And you can't, right? Like it's like, when you're in those moods where you just kind of want to be cranky and then someone makes you laugh and you're almost like you resist that a little bit because you're like, fuck, I was really kind of like committed to this cranky bastard moment, Now this person came through and made me laugh, like, okay. And then it's just reset gets hit. You didn't have to hit it. The reset button gets hit.
Man, this is and I think especially these days when it is hard to find joy because there is a lot of stuff happening. That's the opposite of that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people saw joy as extra, as like, oh, it's kind of silly and I get it and all that, but it's like, and then also like you're saying the bumper sticker of joy, the love, was it eat love, not eat love,
live laugh love,
yeah, that whole thing. And that's why I like when you said the punk rock of joy, or like the gritty. I don't know if there's because if you don't have this ability, because one of my big revelations, and it came later in life, I'm now 51, is that the coins are sprinkled throughout the rainbow, not in a giant tub at the end. Not a tub, a pot. And yeah, a tub. English is my second language, if you guys don't know. But I always thought it was at the end, and there is no joy, and friends are a waste of time, and why travel? Save your money. And it's just you and your partner, and you guys are, in one codependent container, all trying to get this giant, pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And that's actually not how you live your life. It's sprinkled throughout. You just have to find the coins.
Yep. I think you were actually the first person that taught me this because you talked about finding nectar.
Yeah, I and this is another reason why I resonate with MC's message, is because I didn't know that I was doing this. I text her. I'm having a lot of revelations where, as I look back and I think about my rebirth post divorce, when I really had nothing, I could afford a donut and coffee and styrofoam, and I would just walk I had no friends. I was just walking the streets of K-Town with Wayne Dyer in my ear. And then I would just, on my free time, I would just be on Tumblr blogging, talking about my feelings. Yeah. This is actually how I met MC. Yeah. This is 2010 maybe. Yeah. And like MC, where she kind of defaulted to, in her darkness, just finding things that were in front of her, I was forced to hit flow states on my motorcycle.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate black coffee in styrofoam in the middle of K-Town, just like walking the streets, smelling Korean barbecue, noticing neon lights, dreaming,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's all I
Yeah.
had.
Right.
And I was able to seek nectar. And as a
Mm-hmm.
reminder, I got a tattoo of a hummingbird on my bicep because um, that's what saved me. That's what prevented me from not going into depression.
Mm-hmm.
And then I never knew there was science behind it. I never knew what I was actually
Yeah.
doing was uh, generating and activating my hope circuit, and then
Mm-hmm.
kind of not being less afraid.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that we reach for stuff without knowing what we're doing. I think that's so
Mm,
cool, and that's such a testament to
mm-hmm.
the inherent drive to adapt that we have as human beings. That's a fucking miracle, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think and I think there's also this it's sort of peppered it through literature too. There's this little passage in To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf where she's talking about one of the characters is having a pretty serious dark moment, and she kind of looks across the room and the light is kind of bouncing off the ocean and kind of spreading across the floor,
Mm-hmm.
and she just says a couple times, "It is enough. It's enough." And it's like, yeah, sometimes you only have coffee and styrofoam. By the way, you've upgraded your coffee game so much.
$12 for one cup of pour over coffee. I'm a coffee snob. I went so far the other way. I'm stripping joy. Now it's like I'm hurting
yeah.
myself. Yeah. I only drink pour over coffee, which costs $12 here in Los Angeles, and I think I'm now it's hard to find joy because
I fantasize about that coffee that you had at the retreat house. It's like, holy crap. But yeah, it's, sometimes you only have those tiny little things, but that's okay because those will be enough. And I think if we know that, then we know what our anchors are going to be when we're going through a really tough time. And that can change how we feel in the darkest moments of our lives,
Yeah, when you just said, the light, what describe the visual again? It was a light. It was in water, and that when you said that was enough.
Yeah, for this Mrs. Ramsey is the character, and she sees the light kind of spread itself across the floor, and she says, "It is enough. It is enough."
So when you say that, I also think about relationships and how in relationships we want more and we have expectations, and if it was only this way, if they would only do that, and to just have a stream of light and to say that is enough. And to accept people for who they are, and to find what I call it finding beauty in the contrast, right?
Yes, totally. I love that.
Yeah. When Vanessa and I met, it was rocky, and I was doing a lot of comparing, and I was, I was trying to put her in a box, and I was, putting the black light over our relationship, and it wasn't until I kind of shifted my mindset and started to see the beauty in the contrast instead of seeing our differences as a hash mark, that actually our differences is what makes this beautiful, uncomfortable, but also beautiful. That's when I start to lean into the love and relationship. And I think that's when I went from fear to hope.
Yeah, that's so, so much more sustainable, right? Hope and joy are sustainable fuel sources. Fear is not a sustainable fuel source. It'll burn you right out. And so when you're living in a relationship or at a job in a fear state, time is ticking. But if you're able to look across the table at your partner who just handed you the salt without you having to ask, and feel true, deep gratitude that they know you like that, like, damn, that's beautiful,
That's how I know you're a talented writer is the person who just handed you the salt without you asking. like just that, I mean, I write like that too, like in pictures, what I see. But that snapshot, it just tells you so much,
right?
And it's visual. Speaking of writing, you just turned in your book.
Yep.
How do you feel about it? Tell us a little bit more about it. Do you know when it's coming out?
Yes, it has a pub date and everything. It doesn't have a title, but it has a pub date. It'll come out 5/20/25, so in just almost exactly a year from now.
Okay, nice.
Yep.
Awesome. And what are some titles that you're thinking of?
With the last meeting that I had with my editor, we were thinking about calling it Joy. Are you fucking kidding?
Oh, that's more like my style.
Yes, because
Yeah.
I had
Yeah,
this
yeah,
meeting with
yeah,
her.
yeah.
She hadn't read the manuscript yet. I just turned it in, and I was like, Renee, like it's dark. It's a
Mm.
dark book. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
like
yeah. I
it's
like
not
it.
what we talked about.
Yeah. Joy, are you fucking
And
yeah.
yeah, and I tell the story in the beginning of how the first time I kind of tried to launch this sort of thing with a client, she literally told me to fuck off and close her computer.
Oh my
And it was like,
gosh.
okay, so what do you do when you're at that place with joy and someone is telling you, but this is the thing that's going to heal your trauma, your brain, your
Mm.
whole life. It's going to change everything. But you're at that moment. And so that's kind of why we were thinking of I don't know if that title will fly or what, what
Right.
will come out, but we were talking about like a black matte cover and just like
Oh,
joy, are you
that
fucking
sounds
kidding me?
very me, very Johnny
It says
Cash.
yes, exactly.
Yes,
Yeah.
except because I'm not good with punctuation and grammar. Mine will be like Joy, comma. Are you kidding me? It's like Joy's not a person. Wait, hold on. Joy question mark.
Wait.
Yeah. But then there's going to be a subtitle, I think, on your book, of course,
Yeah,
to
totally.
explain it, the science behind joy.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, look out for that. In the meantime,
Yes.
check out MC's book, Unbroken.
Yep.
And it's not only about trauma. It's about because trauma is such a it's a word that's become a bumper sticker too, like
Mm-hmm.
narcissism and all these other
Oh, hell
words. And
yeah.
so
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people filling in blanks, a lot of people using words like trigger
Yeah.
inaccurately, right? And so
Yep.
this book Unbroken, I think if I was to simplify it, it actually peels the stigma of trauma, but also kind of humanizes it.
Ooh, I
And
love that.
so MC shares her personal story and
Yeah.
also a ton of what to do, and it's a great book, and that's out now. You could get it; it's wide. Go check it. Go grab that on Amazon.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, and then also MC. When we're talking like this, I know that it's great because I forget that we're podcasting.
I know, right? I always do too. It's like, wait, what did I say out loud on recording?
So what I'm saying is I want to do this more often. I know we're both busy, but
Yes.
I'd rather do this with you more often, but 20-30 minutes
Yep.
than less often for an hour.
For an
Does
hour.
that make sense?
Totally. Yeah. I'm in.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Thank you so much for schooling us on joy. And if you're listening, I hope.
Oh, of course.
Why do I say if you're listening? Of course you're listening. If you hear me, you're listening. Like they're not listening, but they're just playing the podcast, but they're not listening. A
If you're
reminder
still listening.
today, and I'm actually look. It's 2:40, so I have lots of time rest
Yep.
of the day. A reminder today to practice this, right? Don't just think about it. Go practice actively finding tiny little joys in your life, knowing
Yes.
that you are generating and feeding your hope circuit and turning down, kinking the fear circuit. And that's how you're going to rewire yourself.
Kink your fear circuit. That could be the title.
Ooh, it sounds sexy.
It does.
Kink your
With
fear
like
circuit.
a whip on the cover.
Oh, shit. All right. Hey, where can we follow you because your content's so amazing?
Oh, thank you. I'm on TikTok and Instagram at mc.phd, and my website is alchemycoaching.life.
Nice. All right, everyone, be well.
Thank you.